Hello, Plato. Say, for me, it's great to see all these kids out here, so I think they need applause for being so well behaved. You know, we had some pretty smart founding fathers. When they were grappling with how to form a government that would lead this country, a country that they hoped would grow and prosper, they had a puzzle about how to set up the legislative branch. And there was a fight. And the fight led to a compromise that said, why don't we have one house that represents the people in proportionate to where they live? And then why don't we have another house that is organized in a different fashion? Well, then they thought that was a good idea, and then they turned to James Madison, who was really the father of the census, and they said, well, Madison, how are we going to make sure this keeps up to date? Because we're expecting this population to grow and move. And he said, why don't we do a census? And we're one of the few countries in the world that right there in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, these guys were serious about this, said we're going to do a census every 10 years, and we're going to reapportion the House of Representatives based on this. And this is what we learn in good schools like Plato. And we've done that every 10 years, successfully. In times of war, in times of depression, we've done this, and increasingly we count ourselves in the spirit of America. We did this last year. 109 people in Plato were measured. That sign out there that says 74, we got to update, by the way. 109 measured in Plato, and 308.7 million across the country. We did that with a whole lot of volunteerism, just like what you're seeing today. It's a wonderful national ceremony that we go through every 10 years, and we need to remember why we do it. It's part of the roots of how we govern ourselves, and it's a good part. I want to thank a few people. Bob Byram hasn't been thanked enough, and his wonderful wife, Susan. He's put up with us from Washington calling him and announcing this event or this designation in a way that I'm not sure he welcomed on first hearing. But hopefully the mayor from Edgar Springs can tell him that it's not all bad. Nice people drop by throughout the decade and stop, and they'll see this monument, and they'll talk to you and be nice, hopefully. But he's been wonderful. We partnered in this with the U.S. Geodetic Survey. Now, what do? They really find spots and elevation with great precision. And we have Juliana Blackwell from the Geodetic Survey here who represents all her colleagues who worked on this. And I want to thank Greg and Courtney, these two seniors here who've been doing the MC work. They're pretty special, aren't they? And with these kinds of folks, Plato has a wonderful future. So what does this thing called the center of the population actually mean? What does this mean? Well, imagine that we had a flat plane, a weightless map, sort of, and it includes Alaska and Hawaii. And then you put people on top of that surface, and let's pretend, just for fun, that everybody weighs the same amount. And you put a pencil under that, you try to balance that point. Well, that point is right here, actually about 2 miles away from here, where Robert and Mary Hartzog has their farm. It's out in the woods, but we did this symbolic memorial here so that you'll pick up all the tourist trade from the center of the population. And that's what it means. And as the governor's proclamation said, we've moved. Go to our website, census.gov, and watch how the center of the population has moved over the decades. It started in Maryland. Imagine that. And And as we added states and we added population and people moved west, it's moved south and west every decade. So we are honored to be here. I must admit, I've been here only a few hours, but there is a spirit in this village that it doesn't take long to pick up. This spirit of volunteerism. The fact that the kids made up t-shirts and the money doesn't go into their pockets but goes back into school for scholarships and boosters and stuff like that, this is extraordinary. So you ought to buy those t-shirts and buy those buttons. It'll help out the school. I think it's a wonderful thing. So my hope is that as these tourists come by, one by one over the next 10 years, they'll learn from you about that spirit. I can't think of a better center of population of the United States than Plato, Missouri, because you exhibit all the values we aspire to. So congratulations.